In the vast reaches of the cosmos marked by endless constellations and ancient rivalries, a quiet force began to stir, a force that would alter the fabric of interstellar power. The galaxy, an immense tapestry woven from countless cultures and civilizations, teetered on the edge of a transformation that had been silently unfolding. Here, the traditional order had long been defined by brute strength and time-worn codes of honor, where power was measured in the weight of armaments and the legacy of conquests. Yet, beneath the shimmering veneer of stellar empires and intergalactic alliances, there existed a subtle current that whispered of a different kind of strength, one forged not by sheer force, but by a singular and relentless will to negotiate, to understand, and ultimately to transform. Across solar systems and star clusters, mighty civilizations with storied pasts maintained their dominion through ritualized conflict and a deep-seated belief in their own superiority. These ancient powers, each with customs honed over millennia, found solace in traditions that rewarded valor and the decisive application of military might. However, as the eons unfolded, a new player emerged from the fringes of cosmic history, a species whose legacy was as tumultuous as it was transformative. Humanity, shaped by struggles and scarred by the crucible of adversity, carried within its collective soul an approach to conflict that was as unyielding as it was innovative. Their history, replete with episodes of turmoil and rebirth, had refined a method of engagement that valued dialogue over destruction and strategy over spectacle. In this era of uneasy equilibrium, the notion of diplomacy had been relegated to a secondary role, a softer art that lacked the immediacy of a laser's discharge or the gravitas of an ancient decree. Yet, humanity's approach was anything but meek. It was born from a relentless drive to survive against overwhelming odds, an evolution that transformed hardship into a wellspring of creative resolve. Where others saw weakness and restraint, humans recognized the potential of a carefully measured word, a pause pregnant with unspoken determination. In the corridors of power, where emissaries and dignitaries exchanged guarded glances, the arrival of human negotiators introduced a fresh paradigm, one that challenged the very assumptions on which the galactic order had been built. Amid the countless diplomatic forums and clandestine meetings held in the dim glow of distant stars, murmurs began to circulate, whispers of an unconventional delegation, one that eschewed grandiose displays in favor of subtle, incisive maneuvers, traveled through the network of interstellar communication. It was not the bluster of armies that caught the attention of the old powers, but the serene, unwavering confidence of a people who had learned to turn the tools of conversation into instruments of profound change. Their presence signaled not a mere addition to the tapestry of galactic players, but a fundamental reimagining of what true strength could entail. Humanity's history was one of enduring resilience, a chronicle of overcoming adversity through ingenuity and profound understanding of the human condition. The scars of past conflicts had not diminished their spirit. Instead, these marks had become the very foundation of a strategic philosophy that valued empathy and insight as weapons in their own right. In a galaxy where conflict was often resolved through displays of force, the human method of negotiation emerged as a quiet revolution, where each word was carefully measured, every gesture laden with the weight of hard-won wisdom. This was not a display of timidity, but a calculated assertion of power that relied on intellect and emotional fortitude, turning the art of diplomacy into an arena where even the mightiest adversaries found themselves reconsidering their age-old doctrines. The subtle transformation began with small, almost imperceptible signals, a carefully chosen phrase here, a measured pause there, that soon coalesced into a ripple felt across the expanse of interstellar politics. In a moment that might have otherwise passed unnoticed in the endless march of history, an unassuming communique from a human envoy set in motion a chain of events that would challenge the established order. The words, delivered with calm precision and an unwavering sense of purpose, resonated far beyond the immediate audience. They conveyed not only a call for dialogue, but also an implicit reminder that strength could be found in understanding rather than in the relentless pursuit of dominance. In the silence that followed this unexpected initiative, the galaxy's ruling entities were forced to confront a stark reality. The traditional measures of power were no longer sufficient to navigate the complexities of modern conflict. Even the most storied and battle-hardened civilizations began to question whether their reliance on raw strength and age-old honor codes could withstand the deliberate, almost surgical precision of human diplomacy. The calculated, unpretentious manner in which humanity had engaged its peers served as a reminder that progress was not solely the domain of those who wielded weapons, but also of those who could harness the transformative potential of ideas and words. Throughout the countless star systems and intergalactic assemblies, a new tension began to permeate the ancient halls of power. Leaders, who had once prided themselves on their ability to enforce order through fear and martial prowess, now found themselves confronting a challenge that was as enigmatic as it was formidable: the human presence. Quiet yet insistent, forced a reconsideration of long-held beliefs. There was an emerging consensus, a realization that in this vast, interconnected galaxy, the true measure of power was beginning to shift from the visible trappings of war to the intangible force of diplomatic resolve. In this pivotal moment, the undercurrents of change gathered strength. What began as a series of isolated gestures evolved into a defining movement, one that hinted at a future where the galaxy might be governed not solely by the tyranny of arms, but by the balanced scales of reason and mutual understanding. The subtle yet undeniable influence of human negotiation rippled through every corner of the interstellar stage, leaving even the most obstinate of adversaries with no choice but to acknowledge that a new order was emerging, one where the legacy of past conflicts would be reinterpreted through the lens of dialogue and measured response. As these developments unfolded, the collective consciousness of the galaxy underwent a quiet metamorphosis. The once unassailable bulwarks of tradition began to show cracks, giving way to a burgeoning hope that the cycle of endless conflict could be redirected. It was a hope rooted in the conviction that the strength of a people could be redefined, that the might of humanity was not confined to physical conquest, but extended to the realm of ideas and principles. In the grand mosaic of interstellar relations, where each civilization played its part in a vast, interwoven drama, humanity's approach to diplomacy emerged as a beacon, a clear signal that even in a universe dominated by the clamor of war, a different future was possible. In the quiet determination of its representatives, the galaxy witnessed the birth of a new era, one defined not by the loud explosions of battle, but by the resonant power of carefully chosen words and the unyielding resolve to pursue peace without sacrificing strength. This was a moment of reckoning, when the established hierarchies were compelled to confront the reality that true influence came not from force alone, but from the courage to redefine what it meant to be powerful. In that delicate balance between tradition and innovation, between the old order and a promising new dawn, humanity's quiet revolution had begun its inexorable march forward, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of interstellar history. Human diplomacy in this act is defined by a resolute clarity of purpose. Every word spoken, every pause taken, is an instrument meticulously honed to unsettle and reshape ancient power structures. There is no ostentation or bluster. Instead, each exchange is deliberate and measured, as if every syllable carries the weight of hard-fought wisdom. The approach is not merely reactive, but is driven by an understanding that, in the grand calculus of interstellar relations, strategic negotiation can overturn the very foundations of entrenched might. Here, the human method is revealed not as a concession to circumstance, but as an unyielding assertion that dialogue, when wielded with precision, becomes a formidable weapon in its own right. In the quiet intensity of these negotiations, human representatives move with an assurance that belies the gravity of their task. Their voices are calm and their demeanors even, yet every word is infused with an unmistakable power. They speak with the conviction that strength is not always measured by the clamor of conflict, but rather by the courage to engage, to listen, and to propose alternatives that challenge the status quo. This is a philosophy born of centuries of survival against overwhelming odds, a relentless refinement of resolve where the art of negotiation evolves into a strategic doctrine. It is an approach that understands that empathy and firmness are not mutually exclusive. Rather, they are two sides of the same coin that, when balanced with care, can diffuse tension and redefine the dynamics of power. At the heart of this philosophy lies the understanding that every interaction is a calculated maneuver. The human negotiators are acutely aware that while the other galactic powers may rely on overt demonstrations of strength, the true battlefield in these encounters is the realm of ideas. Every carefully crafted sentence is designed to disarm the implicit threats that have long underpinned interstellar politics. In a galaxy where ancient customs and rigid hierarchies have dictated the terms of engagement for eons, the human method cuts through with the sharp precision of a well-aimed remark. Their language is at once both gentle and unyielding, offering concessions that serve as tactical feints while simultaneously signaling an uncompromising commitment to fairness and mutual respect. There is a quiet elegance in the way these negotiations unfold. The human approach does not rely on grand declarations or pompous pronouncements. Instead, it is a subtext, the carefully orchestrated pauses, the measured inflections, that speaks volumes. In the midst of high-stakes dialogues, every silence is as potent as the spoken word. Each moment of calm a deliberate counterbalance to the volatility of traditional power plays. This is a language of people who have learned that the soft power of persuasion can often achieve what the blunt force of arms cannot. The human delegation, with its understated yet resolute manner, demonstrates that the true strength of a civilization lies in its ability to transform vulnerability into strategic advantage. In these exchanges, the human negotiators are not simply offering their own interests, but are challenging the very assumptions that have long governed interstellar relations. They pose questions that unsettle established narratives, prompting even the most arrogant adversaries to reconsider the efficacy of their own doctrines. Their counteroffers are not mere bargaining chips, but are crafted to reveal the inherent contradictions in a system built solely on might. By highlighting potential for mutual gain, framing conflict resolution as a shared endeavor rather than a zero-sum contest, they force their counterparts into a reflective reassessment of what it means to wield power in a complex, interconnected galaxy. The precision of this method is underpinned by years of study and adaptation. The human approach is informed by a deep understanding of historical patterns and cultural nuances, a knowledge base accumulated over generations of struggle and innovation. Their strategies are not impulsive. They are the product of careful observation, long-term planning, and the willingness to take calculated risks. Behind every public pronouncement lies a network of covert consultations and strategic deliberations. The human negotiators know that in this arena, the real work happens away from the spotlight. Through quiet, persistent efforts to build bridges, to forge alliances, and create frameworks that allow for continuous dialogue even amidst discord. The impact of this method is immediate and far-reaching. As human representatives articulate their vision for a more balanced and reasoned approach to conflict resolution, they sow seeds of doubt among the more traditional powers. The accustomed certainties of strength based on military might begin to crumble when confronted with the realization that the very act of listening, of proposing a measured alternative, is an act of defiance against an entrenched order. In the eyes of those who have long trusted in the permanence of force, the human approach is both an enigma and a revelation, a quiet but potent demonstration that the power of ideas can rival and even surpass the destructive force of conventional warfare. Every exchange, every subtle maneuver, reinforces the understanding that human diplomacy is not a fallback in times of crisis, but proactive strategy that redefines the nature of engagement itself. The negotiations are conducted with a confidence that is neither boastful nor passive. It is an assuredness born of a long history of overcoming adversity by turning seemingly insurmountable challenges into opportunities for transformative change. In this process, each measured reply and thoughtful rebuttal is a testament to the power of human intellect and the enduring spirit that has allowed a once fragmented people to rise above the limitations of their past. There is also an unmistakable sense of moral clarity in the human approach. It is evident that their objective is not to dominate but to harmonize, to create a framework where disparate voices can converge on a common ground of mutual interest. This clarity is what renders their method so formidable. It is undergirded by an ethical commitment that resonates deeply even among those who have long been adversaries. The notion that fairness and respect can coexist with unwavering resolve is a radical departure from the cold pragmatism that has traditionally defined interstellar relations. It is an approach that invites introspection and, ultimately, forces even the most skeptical observers to question the long-held belief that only overt power can secure peace. In this realm of high-stakes dialogue, every word is a calculated move in an intricate chess game played across the cosmos. The human negotiators demonstrate that true power lies in the capacity to envision alternatives and to articulate them with a precision that leaves little room for ambiguity. Their strategy is a masterclass in controlled assertiveness, a blend of compassion and steely determination that is as disarming as it is inspiring. It is a force that does not seek to dominate through fear, but to transform to the sheer inevitability of reason and shared destiny. Thus, the human approach stands as a stark counterpoint to the traditional paradigms that have governed the galaxy for millennia. It is a reminder that strength need not be measured solely by the ability to wield weapons or enforce decrees, but by the capacity to inspire change through words, ideas, and the unyielding commitment to a more equitable order. This method, forged in the crucible of history and refined by the trials of countless conflicts, is now poised to reshape the very landscape of power. Its effects are subtle yet profound, a quiet revolution that, while imperceptible in its inception, promises to redefine the future of interstellar engagement. In every carefully measured sentence, in each deliberate pause that speaks louder than any battle cry, there's a resounding declaration that the future belongs not to those who shout the loudest, but to those who have the courage to listen, to understand, and to propose a better way forward. The human delegation, by embodying this philosophy, signals a new era where diplomacy is not merely an alternative to war, but a potent force capable of uniting a galaxy divided by ancient rivalries. It is an approach that challenges the very nature of power itself, a quiet yet unstoppable surge of reason and compassion that promises to leave an indelible mark on the cosmos. A palpable shift surged through the galactic order as long-standing tensions erupted into a moment of undeniable crisis. In a silent, weighty exchange of thoughts and purpose, the human envoys stepped forward amidst a maelstrom of uncertainty. The calm in their measured voice cut through the dissonance of conflicting ambitions, as the declaration of reason challenged the accumulated might of centuries-old rivalries. With each word delivered in a tone both serene and resolute, the humans articulated a vision that demanded not to clamor war, but a decisive confrontation with the forces that had long ruled through intimidation and brute force. The crisis unfolded rapidly, an unforeseen disruption igniting passions in every corner of the interstellar community. A conflict, sparked by an age-old territorial dispute over a resource vital to the balance of power, now threatened to escalate into open warfare. In the midst of escalating tensions, when every faction appeared prepared to unleash the full fury of their armaments, the human delegation made their move. Their approach was neither ostentatious nor theatrical. It was a deliberate assertion that the time for reckless aggression had passed. Instead, their measured response was a call for clarity, a demand that all sides re-examine the costs of unbridled conflict and consider the benefits of a reasoned, structured dialogue. There was a moment when the intensity of the situation reached its zenith. In the charged atmosphere of this pivotal juncture, the human representatives, backed by an unyielding conviction, deployed the full breadth of their diplomatic arsenal. Their words, carefully chosen and delivered with unwavering poise, served as a catalyst for change. They spoke with the authority of a people tempered by hardship, emphasizing that true power lay not in the capacity to destroy, but in the ability to forge a sustainable future through mutual understanding. Every sentence was laden with historical precedent and moral clarity, a reminder that the cycle of conflict could be broken through collective insight and shared responsibility. As the dialogue reached a fevered pitch, the human approach revealed itself as both a shield and a sword, protecting the vulnerable and challenging the proud. Their speech was not merely a series of concessions. It was a strategic declaration that every hostile intent could be met with the quiet might of reason. There was no flamboyant rhetoric here, no theatrical displays meant to dazzle the audience. Instead, the human negotiators presented an unyielding resolve that disarmed even the most aggressive interlocutors. Their words were imbued with an undeniable force, a force that resonated deeply within the hearts of those who had grown weary of endless cycles of retribution. In that critical hour, the power of human diplomacy was laid bare, as it redefined the parameters of engagement with a clarity that left no room for misinterpretation. The reaction from the galactic powers was immediate and profound. Those who had long relied on the spectacle of might found themselves unsettled by the sheer audacity of this alternative approach. In whispered conversations and hushed consultations, leaders of ancient civilizations began to acknowledge the underlying truth. The era of dominance through raw power was waning. Even among those who had previously dismissed human methods as naive, there emerged a grudging respect for the precision and foresight that characterized each carefully measured statement. The deliberate cadence of the human words created ripples that spread across battle-scarred councils and opulent halls alike, prompting a collective reevaluation of long-held doctrines. It became increasingly clear that the calculus of power was shifting, one that favored not the explosive demonstration of force, but the relentless pursuit of equilibrium through discourse. In the wake of the decisive moment, the atmosphere was charged with both apprehension and cautious optimism. Delegates from rival factions, now forced to confront the unyielding logic behind human proposals, engaged in intense, private debates about the future of their alliances. The reverberations of the human intervention were felt across vast distances, altering the strategic calculations of those who had once thought themselves invincible. A palpable sense of introspection settled over the assemblies, as the realization dawned that the old methods of intimidation were no longer sufficient in the face of a force that wielded words as deftly as weapons. There was an emerging consensus that the alternative presented by human diplomacy might offer a path to stability, a route that would replace the tumultuous cycles of violence with a framework built on the principles of shared responsibility and mutual respect. As the crisis began to subside, a new order took shape in the minds of those who had been forced to witness the transformative impact of measured negotiation. The human delegation, by demonstrating that clarity and conviction could avert the descent into chaos, had not only averted a war, but had also laid the groundwork for an enduring shift in the balance of power. The moment was etched in the collective memory of the galaxy, a turning point where the traditional instruments of coercion yielded to the subtle yet formidable influence of diplomacy. In the silence that followed the human address, it was as if the cosmos itself paused to absorb the implications of what had transpired. There was an unspoken acknowledgement that the age of unchecked aggression was giving way to an era where dialogue and reason might hold the promise of a more enlightened future. Even as the immediate threat receded, the impact of that decisive hour continued to reverberate throughout the interstellar community. In the quiet aftermath, leaders who had once wielded power to the threat of violence now found themselves compelled to adopt a more reflective posture. The calculated defiance of the human envoys had set in motion a chain reaction, an impetus for change that would eventually permeate the structures of governance and military strategy alike. A new sense of accountability began to take root, where the cost of continued conflict was weighed against the potential for lasting peace. This reawakening was not instantaneous, nor was it free from resistance, but it signaled the beginning of a transformation that promised to redefine the nature of power across the galaxy. At the heart of this evolving dynamic was the realization that the true measure of strength was not found in the might of one's armaments or the historical legacy of violent conquest, but in the capacity to envision and enact a future free from perpetual strife. The human commitment to reason and the unyielding demand for dialogue had pierced the veil of tradition, exposing a vulnerability in the established order that had long been considered impervious. In that moment of reckoning, the galaxy learned that even the most formidable empires could be compelled to reconsider the efficacy of their methods. The transformation was not achieved through the spectacle of violence, but through a series of calculated, resolute declarations that resonated with the timeless appeal of justice and fairness. In the days that followed, as the reverberations of that pivotal intervention continued to reshape the discourse among galactic leaders, the essence of human diplomacy became a benchmark against which all future negotiations were measured. The clarity and precision of the human approach stood as a testament to the possibility of change, a reminder that, in the intricate tapestry of interstellar relations, the quiet power of reason could triumph over the age-old dictates of conquest. The resolute spirit of humanity had, in one fateful day, redefined the very concept of strength. It was a legacy not inscribed in the annals of warfare, but in the hearts and minds of those who dared to imagine a cosmos governed by principles rather than by the caprice of brute force. In that profound moment of transformation, the balance of power shifted imperceptibly yet irrevocably. The old certainties began to crumble under the weight of a new philosophy, a philosophy that saw the potential for unity and diversity, and the possibility of progress in the face of insurmountable odds. It was a turning point that promised echo through the ages, a reminder that even in a galaxy steeped in conflict, there remained the hope of renewal through the courage to speak, to listen, and to forge a path toward a brighter, more equitable future. In the wake of that decisive intervention, the galactic landscape began to transform in subtle yet irrevocable ways. The echoes of ancient conflict were gradually replaced by a measured recalibration of power, as leaders and citizens alike embraced a new vision of collective destiny. The old guard, long accustomed to asserting dominance through force and rigid hierarchies, found themselves compelled to rethink their inherited doctrines. A quiet evolution unfolded, a transformation driven not by the clamor of war, but by the steady, deliberate force of reasoned dialogue. Across vast distances, the structures that once defined interstellar relations began to shift. Where dispute had previously given rise to endless cycles of retaliation, a framework for continuous conversation emerged. Institutions and councils were reformed to prioritize transparency and mutual accountability. Treaties, once rigid and uncompromising, were redrafted with mechanisms for ongoing dialogue, ensuring that even the mightiest powers could not escape the need to negotiate. This reorganization was not an abrupt revolution, but rather a gradual, almost imperceptible reordering of priorities. The realization spread that true strength lay not in the ability to enforce will by force, but in the capacity to nurture shared interests and to foster a climate where dissent was resolved through understanding rather than confrontation. Throughout this transformation, personal narratives and cultural expressions began to tell a new story, a story of renewal and hope. In distant communities, the legacy of that turning point resonated in the songs, poetry, and oral histories of diverse peoples. Elder statesmen and ordinary citizens alike recalled with a sense of wonder how a quiet intervention had altered the course of history. In one such recollection, a once warrior society described a moment they first encountered an envoy whose words carried a weight that transcended physical might. The transformative power of such testimonies lay in their universality, a reminder that even the most entrenched beliefs could be reshaped when confronted with the possibility of a different future. As this cultural shift took root, the impact on daily life became increasingly evident. Economic alliances once built on the spoils of conflict gave way to trade and cooperation, founded on mutual benefit. Isolated regions, previously separated by the rigid boundaries of old allegiances, found themselves engaging in interplanetary dialogues that enriched every community involved. Marketplaces flourished not as arenas of competition, but as centers of shared prosperity, and cooperative ventures replaced the relentless cycle of retribution. This pragmatic realignment signaled a deeper change in the way societies measured progress. The success of these new arrangements was a testament to the enduring power of collective will, a will that had been awakened by a series of deliberate, measured exchanges and had now spread, like a quiet revolution, through every corner of the galaxy. The legacy of that epical day was enshrined not only in institutional reforms and economic partnerships, but also in the very fabric of interstellar diplomacy. The principles that had once been dismissed as naive were now taught as the cornerstone of conflict resolution. Scholars and statesmen analyzed every measured phrase, every deliberate pause, as a masterclass in the art of negotiation. The methods once employed solely in moments of crisis became the guiding light for future generations, serving as a blueprint for a cosmos that aspired to replace endless cycles of violence with a sustainable, harmonious order. In council chambers and academic halls, the ethos of that day was debated, celebrated, and ultimately integrated into the core teachings of diplomacy. The subtle yet undeniable shift in perspective fostered an environment in which the power of ideas could challenge and ultimately supplant the blunt instruments of war. In quiet moments of reflection, leaders across disparate worlds began to understand that the true measure of their civilization was not found in the legacies of past conquests, but in the capacity to evolve and embrace change. This growing self-awareness spurred a broader movement toward reconciliation. Even those who had once been the fiercest proponents of militaristic dominance found themselves opening up to the possibility that a future based on dialogue was not only achievable but necessary. In private deliberations and public declarations alike, a new consensus emerged that the force of collective reasoning, anchored in shared experience and common purpose, held the promise of more enlightened order. This shared conviction became the bedrock upon which the new galactic consensus was built, a consensus that celebrated the transformative power of deliberate, measured action over impulsive displays of might. The long-term implications of this shift were profound. Over time, the recalibration of power led to the emergence of a governance model that transcended the limitations of traditional authority. The new interstellar order was characterized by decentralized decision-making and a respect for the diverse voices that had long been silenced by the dictates of a few dominant empires. In this emerging paradigm, every treaty, every negotiated agreement, was imbued with the understanding that lasting peace depended on the willingness to engage in continuous dialogue. The reforms were not merely cosmetic. They reflected a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to govern a galaxy of myriad cultures and conflicting interests. The legacy of that transformative day was thus immortalized in the very institutions that now guided interstellar relations, a legacy built on the conviction that true power lay in the courage to listen, to understand, and to act with deliberate wisdom. Even as a new order solidified, the lessons of that epical moment continued to inspire and inform the actions of future generations. In scholarly treatises, public debates, and everyday conversations, the enduring impact of human diplomacy was recounted with reverence. It was a legacy that transcended the immediate outcomes of any single negotiation or crisis. It was an idea, a belief in the transformative potential of principled engagement. The narrative of that day served as a constant reminder that while the specter of conflict might always linger, the capacity for change was equally enduring. The path to lasting peace, it was learned, was paved not with the detritus of vanquished foes, but with the sustained, often quiet efforts to forge connections and build bridges across divides. In time, the echoes of that quiet revolution became the heartbeat of a unified galaxy, a steady pulse that resonated with the promise of renewal and mutual respect. The legacy of human diplomacy, faceless yet formidable, redefined not only the nature of interstellar power, but also the very notion of what it meant to be a part of shared, collective destiny. Each day, in every corner of the cosmos, the lessons of that transformative era were applied in the service of a higher purpose, to create a future where dialogue, understanding, and cooperation would prevail over the destructive impulses of the past. It was a vision that continued to evolve, one that promised an enduring peace built on foundations of reason and the unyielding commitment to a better tomorrow.